Well, a good Friday morning. Thank you for tuning in to the Gardener's Corner program, a Friday feature here on TV Channel 10, located on Charter Communications Channel 191. Rob Hall here. The Gardener's Corner program brought to you today by T.G. Brooks Company and South Boston Memorials. Without further ado, please make welcome all the way from the North Carolina Cooperative Extension Service, the big kahuna himself, Mr. Carl. I've only got 1 week before retirement. Catalupi. A good morning to you, my friend.
Good morning, Rob. Good morning. Glad to be here.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to let you know the month of June calendar that Carl has been keeping up with is just about full of X's. He only has, after today, 4 more working days.
That's correct.
With the Cooperative Extension Service.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not going to let him go. He'll be back next week on
The 1st.
Friday, July 1st, with us here on the Gardener's Corner program. And we'll kind of be doing a kind of overview of his career with the Cooperative Extension Service. So that'll be a special edition of the Gardener's Corner program. Anyway, just want to let you know that we are live in the studio today. You can call 336-599-0266. Carl, here it is, prime gardening weather.
It sure is.
And, you know, with the weather that we've been having, which last night we had some storms and had a pretty good amount of rain, and we were kind of dry.
We were dry, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Any idea of any particular problems with bugs or disease or anything that's kind of been happening over the last few weeks or so?
Well, with the dry weather that we've been having, you know, any plants that are fruiting, such as blueberries, you know, the dry soils really influence the amount of blueberries that you're going to get. Because once the soils dry out, you have, especially if you have a heavy crop load of fruit, they really need the extra water, because otherwise the plant will go ahead and thin itself of the excess fruit. So you really, hopefully you've been cautious and you've been giving the fruit crop plants the water that they needed in order to survive. Now we got a downpour, so the things to look out for now, a lot of times fungus diseases on plants, especially the tomato diseases like early blight and septoria leaf spot, run rampant, usually after a rain, and it's especially true for the septoria leaf spot fungus. So go out to your gardens and check your tomatoes, and if you see spots like this, you can, if you're viewing it on TV or on the computer right now, this is septoria leaf spot. It gets started on the bottom of the tomato plant, and it spreads rapidly to the top, and it seems to be accelerated by a lot of rain. And here's a shot of some diseased leaves that were actually taken last year. Right after a rain, this fungus moves in, and if the plants are not protected with a fungicide, they'll just melt right out, turn yellow and brown, and then the entire plant dies. So it can be pretty destructive if you don't do anything. So that's septoria. The other common disease is early blight, and early blight is easily recognized by the bullseye or target board markings that you see on the leaves. And of course, again, the disease starts on the bottom of the plant and then moves its way up until the top. So in order to prevent getting these diseases, you need to spray with fungicides, starting one week with Daconil, and then the following week switch to Mancozeb. So, or you could stretch that to 10 days if every 10 days if you want. So one spray with Daconil, one spray with Mancozeb to keep ahead of the fungus, because as we all know, fungi reproduce by spores in the air. They land on plant leaves, and then they penetrate the leaf tissue. Once they're inside, spraying with a fungicide is not going to do any good. So if you have any leaves that look like this, that have early blight or septoria leaf spot, pick them off, then spray. And you can, as long as you have a fungicide barrier on the leaf, when the fungus spore lands on the leaf, it gets killed before it goes inside. And a lot of people ask the question, well, you know, it says on the label you have to wait so many days after you spray before you can pick. So this is especially important when you're thinking of letting the tomatoes turn red ripe on the vine before you pick them. There's no reason to do that, because as we know, and I've said on the program many times before, ethylene is the growth regulator that causes fruits to ripen. So as soon as the ethylene is released in the fruit, and a good time to pick the fruit would be when you first start to notice a color change from a greenish, whitish color to a pink color. Pick the fruits off the plant, ripen them up indoors, and then you can spray with a fungicide, and then you can easily satisfy the waiting period. Again, so you never want to let the fruit stay red ripe on the vine, because this causes a host of other problems. You get other fungus diseases that, such as anthracnose, which actually will cause the fruits to rot. So there's a lot of pathogens that can't infect green fruits or fruits that are just turning color. So pick them when you first start to notice a color change. Then if you spray with a fungicide, you'll have plenty of time for those days to pass before the fruits ripen.
Well, Carl, you know, I think it's pretty neat, and while you were talking about that, I know in the past you have talked about if you take a green tomato that is immature and slice it the way it looks on the inside, and then the way that one looks if you slice it if it's in its maturity stage.
That's right.
And I think, as a lot of people, that they love to say, oh, I bought these tomatoes from such and such, and they are vine ripened tomatoes. You know, saying that's just using fancy words, because it doesn't make the tomato any better if it's left on the plant until it is completely ripe.
It sure doesn't. Yeah.
What it pretty much does is it takes life away, and it invites diseases into the tomato plant. So anyway, and I never really knew this until, you know, Carl started telling me this a few years back. But when the ethylene is released, you know, that is what will make the tomato ripen.
Right.
But if you want to speed the process up, and I've done this, and Carl is the one told me to, you take a couple of tomatoes and put them in a bag with a banana, and kind of fold the top down, and maybe put a clothespin on it to kind of keep it from unrolling itself. And with that banana in there with those tomatoes, they will really speed the ripening process up.
That's right. Exactly right, Rob. And here's a slide that shows the maturity stages of tomatoes. And these are in the mature green stage. That's called MG. The mature green stage, if you slice open the tomato, you can see the knife will slip by the seeds, and the seeds are embedded in what we call the locular jelly of the fruit. If you cut into an immature green tomato, the locular jelly has not formed yet, so the knife will actually cut the seeds. But mature green stage, the gel is formed, and you can see MG1, MG2, MG3, and MG4, different stages of mature green. When you get over to the mature green 4 stage, you can start to notice a color change in the center of the fruit. And then when you get all the way to the end, we're in the breaker stage. That's when you can actually see the pink coloration in the locular jelly. And so this shows you when a tomato ripens, it ripens from the inside out, not the other way around. So the breaker stage is a fine stage to go ahead and pick your tomatoes off of the plant, and then having them to ripen up very well. I remember back at the Oxford Produce Auction.
You know, when you just said breaker tomatoes, I thought the same thing.
Greg Goins.
Yeah.
And he was auctioning off a bunch of tomatoes, and I'll never forget. He said, "Here's some of them in the breaker stage. Here's some that haven't broken yet."
He really added life to that.
Yeah,
didn't he?
he certainly did. Yeah.
But you know, no need to pick your tomatoes and take them inside and put them in the windowsill. Don't pick your tomatoes and put them in the refrigerator.
Right.
Just put them on the counter that's out of the direct sunlight, room temperature, and they will go ahead and ripen up nicely. They'll ripen up just about as fast on the counter as they would, you know, being outside. One other thing, don't put your tomatoes in the refrigerator unless you have got one that is overripe.
Yeah.
Now, if it's overripe, you can add a little bit of life to it by putting it in the refrigerator.
That's right. Here is a slide of tomato that is red ripe, and it has a fungus disease called anthracnose. This is what happens if you leave plants to ripen on the plant too long. They get this anthracnose fungus disease, and it's very easily identified because the fruit actually turns into these spots that look like craters on the moon. And if you look real close, you can see as the tomato starts to decompose, you can see the black spores in the spot. So there's no need to ever have this disease if you pick the fruits in the mature green stage before they become red ripe, because the anthracnose fungus cannot infect mature green tomatoes. Another common problem that we might see later on is tomato spotted wilt virus. They get their start on transplants that were grown in greenhouses that might have had ornamental plants growing there. The virus is transmitted by an insect known as thrips, and they cause black spots to appear on the plant. And then when you look at the fruit, it produces these concentric rings. So if you see fruits like this that have these rings that look like the planets, this is what it is. If it happens early in the life of the plant, it can stunt the plant and really cause a problem, as far as its ability to produce fruit. If this gets affected late in the plant's cycle, it might not cause that much problem. But anyway, that's tomato spotted wilt. I'm trying to go through here. Another one to look out for on tomatoes is southern stem blight. This is one that attacks tomatoes, especially if you don't bother to rotate your plantings from year to year, and it's very easily identified because you have this whitish cottony growth of the fungal strands called mycelium on the plant stem just as it goes into the ground, and then it produces these little mustard seed things called sclerotia. These mustard seed capsules are what stay in the soil and overwinter and then reinfect the plants. Here's another shot of them. So you can completely control this one by making sure that you rotate your planting. Otherwise, southern blight can be very, very destructive.
Carl, by talking about, rotating your tomatoes and not planting them in the same location every year,
Right.
if you're planting in, say, a small garden spot or raised bed, when you finished harvesting the tomatoes, is it a good idea to just go ahead and get the old tomato plants off of that garden spot
Yeah. Hmm.
and dispose of them
That's right.
in a compost pile, or just put them in the garbage?
Just put them in the garbage or burn them. Don't put them in the compost pile, because many times the temperatures of the compost pile do not heat up high enough to kill off fungi. So do other things to increase organic matter in the soil. Instead of using the old plant debris, once the garden is finished producing in the fall, then go and seed a cover crop. Might be winter wheat or rye grain, or the legumes like Austrian winter pea, hairy vetch. These will recycle and produce nitrogen in the soil. So these are all time-honored practices that you can do to increase the organic matter of the soil, and it's much more beneficial than to use the old debris, old plant debris.
We are live in the studio today. 336-599-0266 is the number to call. And for those of you that are listening on the radio, at your convenience, if you're not able to watch the Gardener's Corner program on TV, you can log on to the radio station's website, www.radioroxborough.com, and you can watch past editions of the Gardener's Corner program, and you can more or less drive the idea home that Carl explains if you have some of the pictures in front of you that Carl puts up on the TV screen.
Right.
And it really helps out a lot, when you're trying to diagnose a problem that you may be having in the garden. But, a lot of people, matter of fact, just a few days ago on the Want Ads call, I had some people to call in ready, wanting to buy some sweet corn.
Okay.
I don't know of anyone that's already has sweet corn, but it should be coming in the next few weeks or so.
Right.
And, a lot of people maybe has started to get some tomatoes, but still a little bit early for the, local tomatoes to start coming in. But
Yeah.
heard a lot of people talk about snaps has been really coming in good, and things like that.
Summer squash. Yeah.
And for those that are in the process of harvesting the garden, if you kind of feel like you are overwhelmed with having so many things come in at one time, maybe what you should plan, if you want to plant a late garden or next year, contact the North Carolina Cooperative Extension Service, and they have a vegetable gardening planning guide. And also, when you purchase your seed, take a little bit of time to read a little bit of information about how long or how many days it will take from germination of the seed to harvest time. And that way, when you plant things in stages where you kind of stay constantly busy, but hopefully you won't be overwhelmed.
That's right.
With all of these different things at one time.
That's a good idea. Yeah, and go ahead and do that so that you don't wind up with a whole bunch of produce at the same time. Stagger your plantings, and in North Carolina we can have several different succession plantings. We can start off with the cool season vegetables in the spring, and then come back in the fall. Actually, now we'll be getting into early July. Early to mid-July is a good time to go ahead and start seed of cabbage, cauliflower, and broccoli in the garden, so that you can transplant them out into the garden in early to mid-August. You have to do that so that the majority of the plant will grow and mature when the temperatures are cool, because they like cool growing conditions. But you have plenty of time to make other crops of corn, beans, cantaloupe, cucumbers, watermelon, and squash. You can make successive plantings of those right into August and still have plenty of time for those crops to mature.
And it's still plenty of time to plant warm season vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've maybe had other things going on and hadn't been able to get your garden planted, go ahead and maybe try to start doing something in the next few weeks, and you would be okay. Carl, as far as Japanese beetles,
Okay, they've been out.
they have been out in abundance.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that they sometimes, if maybe the food of their choice is not close by, they'll just make light on any type of vegetation, so to speak.
Yeah, they like
to have a picnic.
They like grapes. I've seen them on knockout roses. They really have gone after those, but the damage that they do is called leaf skeletonization. They skeletonize the leaves. In other words, they eat the spaces of the leaves between the veins. The veins are a little bit harder than the rest of the leaves, so what you see when you see Japanese beetle damage is that the leaf veins remain and the other parts are eaten. But what to do to control them is, first of all, you have to see them there actually feeding on the plant before you control them. If you try to spray the plants and you don't see any more beetles, you see the damage that they did, but there's no beetles there, it does no good to apply an insecticide. And probably the insecticide of choice is Sevin, S-E-V-I-N, or Carbaryl, C-A-R-B-A-R-Y-L is the chemical name. And as we've said many times before, use liquid Sevin or the wettable powder formulation that you mix with water and then spray on the plant. It's much less toxic to bees. In fact, if you spray the liquid form on the plant when it dries, it really doesn't hurt the bees. It's the dust formulation of Sevin that really hurts the bees, because they can get it on their bodies and take it back to the hives. Usually when you apply dusts, you don't get very good plant coverage. The dust particles blow all over the place, and so it's really a waste of money. If you use the wettable powders or the liquid forms of Sevin, it's much less per pound of active ingredient when you buy it that way, and it goes a long way.
Well, Carl, the question talking about the Japanese beetles, I have heard, and we used to have them years ago. You could buy this little pack, and it was something that would attract the Japanese beetles, and they would go in this container and they couldn't come out. Now, that's not really a good idea, because not only will you be attracting the Japanese beetles in your yard, you will be attracting them from
other areas.
Other areas around, correct?
That's right. Yeah, these are sex attractants, and they use a lure that is called a pheromone. Pheromones attract the males, and they're in these little capsule-like things, and they fly in, and they can't get back out. And I mean, the idea is good to attract the males to those traps, but if you put those traps right close to the crop you're wanting to protect, you're going to get even more damage than if you did nothing at all. And University of Kentucky entomologists have proved this several years ago. So it's best not to use those traps, because you get an influx of more beetles than you would have originally had. And another thing people wonder about is if they have Japanese beetles and annual white grubs in the lawn. If they treat the lawn, does that necessarily mean they're going to reduce the populations of Japanese beetles? No, because they fly in as adults.
Right.
So-
Okay. Also, this question about bees. And we've always tried to ask people to use water soluble 7, the liquid 7,
Right.
other than the powder or the 7 dust.
Mm-hmm.
But Carl, something this morning on the Southern Farm Network, that's part of the North Carolina News Network.
Right.
They were talking about pollinators,
Mm-hmm.
and they were saying that one of the best things that you could do to help out with pollinators is to plant flowers.
Sure.
And so if you're gardening, it would be a good idea maybe for you to plant some flowers close by your garden, and the flowers would attract the bees, and while they were there, they would also help pollinate the garden.
That's right. And you see these what are called pollinator gardens popping up all over the place now.
Right.
And people are really planting plants that are attractive to bees, and you can really do a lot of good by doing that, because sometimes bees might not be as attracted to some of the vegetable flowers, and so, as you say, if you have other flowers planted, they visit those flowers, and then they go onto your vegetable flowers to pollinate.
Carl, one thing, a question about bees and hornets and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, hornets and yellow jackets and different things are maybe nesting in the ground or in trees,
Mm-hmm.
and some build their own nest. If you can't get, say, to the nest of them to kill them, how would it be if you did put a little bit of 7 dust near, where they are going in and out
Oh, sure.
of the nest? Would that help control
That would work.
the hornets and things like that?
That would work, sure. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, anyway, I wasn't sure, if that would take care of, the hornets and things like that. And I was talking with someone, and they was telling me that they thought that they had, a nest of hornets under their home, and that they have sprayed some, this liquid hornet killer, but they're still having problems, and thought maybe if they could put some 7 out, that maybe would help take care of the problem.
That's right.
Hey, we've got a caller. Good morning. Thank you for calling the Gardener's Corner program.
Morning, Rob.
How you doing?
Listen, kind of look, I have a lemon tree. Some bugs were eating on it. I'm not sure what they were. I sprayed some liquid 7 dust on it, and it's got white spots on it now. Did I ruin it, or is that just natural, or what?
All right. This is a lemon tree, you said?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are they chewing holes in the leaves?
Yeah, it's like chewing the edge off of it. And I sprayed some 7 dust on it, but it's got white spots where that liquid 7 dust, I guess, settled on.
Yeah, that's okay. That's
Did I burn them, or is that okay, or what?
it should be okay. When you do any spraying of plants, it's probably best to not to spray during the heat of the day. Spray early in the morning, so that sometimes if you do apply insecticides, it can be toxic to the plants if it's broiling, if it's broiling hot out there. So, but no, I don't think even if you did cause a little plant injury, it's not going to be life-threatening to the plant.
Okay, because I just got the plant about a couple months ago, and it's growing like tobacco is. It's growing good.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just curious as to, I had those white spots. I didn't know it had a little bud on it, but it looks like maybe it may be dying. It's probably too young to bear fruit anyway, I would imagine.
Yeah, if you just got it, it's probably best to pull the flowers off and let the plant develop a good framework, you know, so that it can hold the fruit, a crop of fruit later. You know, I would probably wait until next year before I would allow it to go ahead and bear fruit.
Right. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Y'all have a great day.
All
Hey,
right, thanks,
appreciate
you
the
too.
call. Thank you. All right.
Yes,
Bye-bye.
sir.
Hey, let's get a word on for one of our fine supporting sponsors. We'll take a trip out to T.G. Brooks Company, in business since 1936. Pretty much one-stop shopping at T.G. Brooks Company. If you're in need of plumbing supplies, irrigation supplies, see them at T.G. Brooks Company. We'll be back with more Gardener's Corner right after this message.
What a terrific spring we had this year. Now, June and then July are the months when we start to see the fruits of our spring labor in our yards and gardens. The planting season has been a good one, and you still have time to plant vegetables and flowers for a summer of beauty. And when the gardens come in, T.G. Brooks Company has canning jars in half pints, quarts, half gallons, plus pressure cookers, pressure canners, bath canners, strainers, funnels, and most other canning supplies. T.G. Brooks also has wide open lawn and garden time going on. T.G. Brooks Company has plenty of tomato plants, lots of them, many varieties. They have vegetable plants of all kinds, garden seed, and flowers all ready to plant. T.G. Brooks Company has irrigation supplies, too. Water hoses, nozzles, sprinklers, and all that you need during the drier weeks. Reseed your lawn with clean, fresh seed, and they have the fertilizer and lime. They have the sprayers, both tank and backpack. And if you need mulch, they stock it in abundance, even the triple ground mulch. T.G. Brooks has your insecticides for vegetables and fungicides. They have chemicals for your grass protection and bug protections too for home pest control. In fact, all your garden and chemical needs are at one spot. No matter if you are a homeowner or a commercial landscaper, T.G. Brooks handles everybody with the same courteous service. They can arrange delivery, or you can pull up with your pickup truck, trailer. They'll load it up for you. The bagged products, they'll load it up for you in your car or van. When the day is done, nothing tops it off like a hand-cut ribeye, cooked to your desired level on your grill. Make your way over to 411 Helena Maria Road in Timberlake. Phone them at 364-2428. As always, T.G. Brooks Company has proudly served the homeowner, the farmer, and those folks in construction since way back in 1936. They welcome folks from all over Person County, Rougemont, Northern Durham, and of course, Southern Person County.
Here we are back on the Gardener's Corner program. Rob Hall here with you, along with Mr. Carl Cantalupi of the North Carolina Cooperative Extension Service. Carl divides his time between Person and Granville counties. And we are live in the studio, 336-599-0266. If you've got a question for Carl, give us a call. We'd be glad to hear from you. Carl, you know, here it is, last part of June pretty much. Is it a good time to be fertilizing Bermuda grasses?
Yeah, definitely. You want to fertilize Bermuda grass with a 1 pound of actual nitrogen per 1,000 square feet just to keep it growing well, especially if you've seeded a new Bermuda grass lawn. You want it to make active growth throughout the hot summer months, June, July, and August. I think we've got...
Yeah, we do. Good morning. Thank you for calling the Gardener's Corner program.
I want to know why it's wrong to plant tomatoes close by a walnut tree.
Oh, okay. Very good question. Haven't talked about that in a while. There's a substance that's given off by the roots of walnut trees called juglone, Juglone. And when certain plants come in contact with root pieces from the walnut tree, this juglone is given off, and it can kill plants such as tomatoes. So when you plant a garden, you should stay at least 50 feet away from the drip line of a walnut tree. Otherwise, you can have the condition that's very aptly named walnut wilt on tomatoes.
Okay. Well, thank you.
All right, thanks for
Appreciate the
calling.
call. Thank you. Paul, that is something I had
You
never
didn't
heard of.
You didn't know that, okay?
Wow, did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying plant at least 50 foot away from the drip line of a walnut tree.
That's right.
Did not know that.
Yep.
Wow, that's interesting. Now, you say some plants, you know,
Are not bothered by it, and other plants are.
and you call it walnut wilt.
Walnut wilt. Mm-hmm.
Never heard of that before. Wow.
Yeah, it's best to stay away from walnut trees because it can really play havoc with tomatoes.
What about squash vine borers, Carl? Is it better to start treating when you see the effects of them, or should you be doing some things ahead of time to keep from more or less having any problems with them at all?
Okay, with squash vine borer, the thing to do is to spray with either 7 or permethrin once every other week, starting in late May. So if you haven't sprayed, this would be a good time to do it. The squash vine borer has 2 generations in North Carolina. The adult lays eggs in early June and again in early August. And I was out actually looking at some squash plants. I'm thinking of the squash bug. But this is the time to go ahead and treat for squash vine borer. You treat at the base of the plant so that when the adult moth lays the eggs, it'll get killed before it goes inside the plant to bore. So if you start spraying now, you can alternate sprays once every 2 weeks, and you should be able to prevent damage from the squash vine borer.
Also, we will make this mention that whenever you spray any type of chemicals, take a few minutes of time to read the labels and make sure to pay close attention to more or less the suggested times before harvest, because you don't want to spray some chemicals today and be harvesting, within that window of time, because you could be, causing harm to yourself.
That's right.
We've got a caller. Good morning. Thank you for calling the Gardener's Corner program.
Yes, sir, Carl. We have an established peony bed, and Johnson grass is taking it over.
Okay.
Can we do anything about that?
Yeah, you can use the product called Vantage, Vantage.
Okay.
You can spray that, and it will kill out the grass, but will not harm the peonies. So that's fine. So any if you have Bermuda grass, wiregrass, any grass that is actively growing in your flower beds and shrub beds, you can spray with Vantage, and it will not harm the flowers or the other plants.
And what time of year do you do that?
When you start to see the grasses actively growing.
Okay, they are actively growing. Of course, now is the time to do that.
Now's the time to do it, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, and we certainly do appreciate what you've done for us all these years.
Oh, well, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate the
All
call.
right, bye.
Good question. Yeah, that Johnson grass can grow rapidly.
Yeah.
It really can. Hey, let's get a word on for South Boston Memorials. We appreciate their business. They're located over in South Boston, Virginia. If you are in need of a grave marker or mausoleum or tombstone, they are 4th generation memorialist at South Boston Memorials. We'll take a trip, and we'll be back with more Gardener's Corner program right after this.
South Boston Memorials, located 1439 Seymour Drive in South Boston, Virginia. They offer granite markers, monuments, and mausoleums. For more information, visit the website SoboMemorials.com or call 434-572-3859. South Boston Memorials have been in business and family-owned since 1958. In-house laser etching is available at South Boston Memorials. They have over 300 granite memorials in stock. For all of your granite markers, monuments, and mausoleums, stop in and see them right there at South Boston Memorials, located 1439 Seymour Drive in South Boston, Virginia, or call them at 434-572-3859 and visit the website SoboMemorials.com. That's South Boston Memorials, located 1439 Seymour Drive in South Boston.
Here we are back on the Gardeners Corner program. 336-599-0266 is the number. If you'd like to give us a call, if you got a question for Carl, he'll do his best to answer it. Carl, just kind of something maybe focusing on your retirement. Have you got many loose ends to tie up in your last week on the job?
No, I think I'm pretty well caught up. I guess I couldn't have planned it better. All my projects are finished and reports are written. Got the research article published in the Journal of the National Association of County Ag Agents, the article on pawpaw, and my work with asparagus, the 10-year variety trial. That's been all compiled and put together, so that'll get ready for publication soon. Let's see what else. Yeah, everything is pretty much done. So I'm going out at a time that everything has been completed. So it'll be it'll be pretty easy to go after being that everything is done.
Carl had actually started talking retirement several months ago, but he had actually planned to retire in about 3 years or so. But he got to doing some checking and talking to some different people, and he decided to go ahead and retire a little bit early. And I don't blame you at all, Carl. And
yeah,
it'll be you're in good health, and I hope you continue to be. And you still got some time to get out and enjoy and do different things, and we certainly don't fault you or blame you at all.
Yeah, and it's not like I'm moving to a strange area.
Right.
Because I worked there in central Pennsylvania back in the late 70s, just out of college, where I worked for a fruit grower and a vegetable grower, managed a roadside market before I went back to graduate school. So I like the area. The people are nice, very, very friendly. And I don't know if I mentioned this to you before, but about 40 years ago, when I was out there working, I knew two county agents at the time. One has been retired for a while now, but the other one is still working out there. We both started at the same time working for fruit and vegetable growers.
Wow.
And we both went back to school. He went back to Penn State and got his master's, while I went out to Kansas State and got mine. And he's still working, and he has found me a grower that is interested in having an asparagus variety trial. So that's already in the works.
Well, good. Anyway, Carl and his wife has actually purchased a house in Pennsylvania, and they bought the house, I guess, maybe
April.
Was it April? I was going to say maybe a month ago, but wow, time flies.
Yeah.
And so they're really looking forward to it. And what's the name of the town in Pennsylvania, Carl?
Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania. It's north of Harrisburg, along the Susquehanna River. If people are familiar, Selinsgrove is the home of Susquehanna University, And if you go maybe 10 miles to the north, many people have heard of Bucknell University. That's in the town of Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, but that Lewisburg is spelled L-E-W-I-S, and the one down here is L-O-U-I-S.
Right.
But anyway, then if you go further north, you come into Williamsport, Pennsylvania. And Williamsport is famous because that's where the Little League baseball championships are played every summer. So it's a nice area, and then it'll be closer. I still have a brother that lives in New Jersey, where I grew up. It's about 3 hours away, so I still have some family close by.
All right. Hey, we'll talk more next week about Carl's retirement plans and things like that, but we've got a caller. Good morning. Thank you for calling the Gardener's Corner program.
Yes, I was wanting to speak with Carl.
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
We had a little snake that got in a bird house, and it was a small bird house. And when it came out, it was black-like and bigger in the middle of the body, but it had some kind of white speck-like things in both sides of the middle of the snake. And the snake was larger in the middle, but the long tail was small too.
Okay.
Did
Well,
you know what that could be?
no. I mean, if you could. Do you have the snake? Is it alive? Is it dead or?
No, my son came and I went and told him. I said, "Come here," and he stuck a stick like in there, and he started trying to come out, and then he come on out, and he just hit him and knocked his head, and he killed him.
Well, if you want it
It
identified,
was.
if you want it identified, we're not wildlife biologists, but we can, we can take a picture of it and send it to a wildlife biologist at NC State and get it identified.
Have y'all ever seen anything like that up here?
Well, I'm no snake expert, so I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, if you could take a picture of it and get it,
I don't know what he done with it.
to the Cooperative
I told him
Extension
they thought it
Service.
was just a baby black snake, but I didn't know they had specks on them.
Whenever I see a snake, no matter what kind it is,
It's gonna run the other way.
me too.
Like
Me
I
too.
went and got my son, and I said, "Come here." He said, "What's wrong, Mama?" I said, "Come here." And then somebody told him he shouldn't have killed him. He was a black snake.
Well,
Yeah.
We don't kill black snakes, but that didn't look like no black snake. A little tiny head. They said it could have been a baby black snake. I don't know.
yeah, I've had people say, well, if you got a black snake around, you won't have any rats. You know what? I think I'd rather deal with a rat.
Well, I don't know. I went out there one time to the lawnmower and pulled it back, and he was curled up in there, and he was a black snake, and he wouldn't move, so I got the hoe, and I said, go on, and he went on back down in the woods then.
Well,
Well,
Well, I didn't kill him.
well, good luck, and but if you can't come up with a picture, get it up to the Cooperative Extension Service, and they'll try to help you identify it.
If they've seen anything look like that, I came from Durham up here, and I don't know a lot about what's up in Person County, but like I said, he was a strange little snake.
all right. Thanks for calling.
Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Well, Carl, once again, it looks like we have ran out of time.
Yes,
much
we
too
have.
soon.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, your last day on the job is next Thursday,
Next
the
Thursday,
30th.
30th. That's
So
right.
we're going to have you back in on Friday the 1st
That's right.
as an
The grand finale.
retired Cooperative Extension Service agent. And then when I do my formal introduction next week, I'm going to have to remember to throw that word retired
Yes, that's right.
in there.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks goes out to our sponsors, South Boston Memorials and T.G. Brooks Company. And special thanks to our resident expert, Mr. Carl Cantalupi of the North Carolina Cooperative Extension Service. My name is Rob Hall. Thanks for tuning in. I want to wish you and yours a happy and safe weekend. And we look forward to seeing you next week for another edition of the Gardener's Corner program.